Ambition, achievement, greed. These are the things that have driven humanity to build empires, cure diseases, and corner markets. However, associated science and development has harnessed these attributes to create one of the most promising and dangerous companies rising in the United Empire of Earth, whose experimentations could have dire consequences for the whole of humanity. My name is Paul Shelley, and welcome to The AstroHistorian. This is a channel dedicated to exploring and explaining the lore of sci-fi and space universes and discussing their impact. Today we're taking a deep dive into ASD and the first true antagonist in the story of StarCitizen, Dr. Logan Jorrit. The story of both starts way back at the end of the 29th century, and a college dropout with high ambitions, Herbert Lubinsky. Herbert Lubinsky, or Herb as he prefers to be called, has always had a love of science. Cultivated by his aunt Sesame Lubinsky, a material scientist who worked at Microtech, he was fascinated by the transformative effect of science and the speed in which humanity would catapult forward after a recent innovation. Setting his sights on becoming a scientist himself, in 2891 he enrolled in a mechanical engineering program at AStroVin University at Sestulus in the city of Jata. So, side note, because I fell down a small rabbit hole here, AStroVin University at Sestulus, or AUC, is actually one of the oldest and largest universities on Sestulus. Founded in 2520 as a research university and managed to survive not only the rocky colonial period, but also the system's economic reversal in the 27th century. Their mascot is the Oshi jellyfish, which is in itself a very funny joke for those who are fans of VTuber and or Japanese idol culture. Oshi jellyfish was just too funny to me. Eager to fully immerse himself in knowledge and learning, Herb began to discover that he was slipping behind many of his classmates. He realized that although his ideas and innovations weren't bad, they were something far worse: average. While he saw flashes of brilliance in his peers, he never found it in himself. Refusing to coast along with his average grades for the sole benefit of a degree, he dropped out, claiming he respected science too much to misrepresent himself behind a piece of paper. Despite this setback, Herb looked for other ways to continue pursuing his passion for science. After dozens of applications, he finally managed to talk his way into an entry-level administrator role at Associated Science and Development. ASD was fairly young, having only been founded 2 decades earlier in 2872. The company found meager success as a contract fabricator for mid-grade industrial parts that few had ever heard of. When Herb was hired, the company was staying afloat, but were struggling to maintain a steady client base while competing with other titans of the industry who could easily outspend them on innovation. Apathy was rife within the company, with many employees looking to jump ship or ride out the gradual decline the company was experiencing. Though that wasn't the case for everyone. While being tasked to provide administrative support to the Research and Development Department in lieu of an absent employee, Herb met Shun Moriyama, a former graduate of the University of Redder. Moriyama was developing a synthetic graphene alongside a highly conductive polymer nanotube that, if done correctly, could create a more efficient supercapacitor. Herb didn't understand the science behind it, but he did understand the potential applications. What stood out most of all to Herb was the passion that consumed Shun when he spoke about it. Shun, in turn, was drawn to Herb's natural charisma, and Herb became determined to make Shun's vision a reality. Through the, let's say, creative reallocation of ASD's limited research budgets, Herb scraped together enough funding for Shun's project. It was a grueling year, one that carried great risk, not just for them, but the company as a whole. But in the end, they had produced a supercapacitor that would increase the efficiency of energy weapons by over 40%, significantly increasing output, efficiency, and the life expectancy of equipment. From mining companies to the UEE military, there wasn't a single industry that wouldn't benefit from this hardware. As the supercapacitor's astronomical sales numbers came in, company share prices soared, and ASD was finally on the map. By 2895, Erb was promoted to CEO, and ASD experienced a golden era of production, riding on the success of Shun's invention and Erb's leadership. Shun celebrated his success quietly and would retire a few years later to teach at his alma mater. Conversely, Erb basked in the acclaim that came with success and gave talks on how to be a disruptive force in the industry and the importance of risk-taking in the face of innovation. With revenue at an all-time high, Erb knew that government and especially military contracts were a surefire way to financial stability for the company. So he created a weapons lab to manufacture energy weapons, uniquely able to take advantage of their ultra-efficient supercapacitors. Their first series of weapons were expensive but effective. Known as the DR Model XJ series of distortion repeaters, they were a hit and brought the company another record-breaking year. But Erb was determined to push the company even further. The company announced a new weapon, one unlike any previously made, the EE6 Electron Cannon. Combining the work of several ongoing ASD research projects, Erb pushed his scientists to craft a weapon that would catapult the industry forward. Capable of polarizing electrical charges at an atomic level, the weapon was not only a feat of destructive power, but of scientific innovation. The first public demonstration of the EE6 in a live-fire environment took place in 2921. While the weapon had already been proven successful in internal testing, Erb was eager to be a bit of a showman and show off its effectiveness in real-world conditions. Bypassing several industry-standard testing protocols, the cannon was attached to a security ship that would use the weapon during their patrol. Several camera drones followed along to broadcast everything live to a gathered crowd. During their second sweep of the sector, the patrol ship engaged with an outlaw vessel attacking the hauler. As the weapon fired its first shot, the electron cannon punched clean through its target, leaving nothing in its wake, and then continued on to severely damage the civilian hauling ship. The crowd gawked in stunned silence as the two ships exploded via the feed. Later, both an internal and independent investigation concluded that a malfunction had caused the cannon to fire a massive oversurge of energy, while the material of the outlaw ship's hull simultaneously acted as an amplifying conduit. The end result was not only the destruction of the ships, but that the crew of both ships were completely burned to ash. After such a gruesome spectacle, the public demanded that ASD be held accountable for the loss of life. People wanted answers, but the company remained strangely silent about the incident, further tarnishing the reputation in the court of public opinion. Behind the scenes, the UEE military had signaled an agreement to invest in the development of the EE7 electron cannon, as well as several other endeavors that remain classified, securing ASD's future. In what many still consider a highly controversial decision, Erb Lubinsky declared that he would not be stepping down as CEO. He acknowledged that mistakes had been made and that those within the company responsible would be held accountable. But this was the risk of innovation. Stepping away from the limelight that he had so previously enjoyed, Erb instead focused on expanding ASD's research and development department. Looking beyond traditional weapons development, ASD would now be broadening their research into biomedical science, finding new applications for their work, and pushing the boundaries of what was scientifically possible. The last few decades has seen ASD expand their lab facilities to more remote parts of space and increase security to ensure that their cutting-edge research remains safe from prying eyes. This is where two people would enter the picture to change the fate of ASD once more: Dr. Aka Ibrahim and Dr. Logan Jorrit. Famed scientist Dr. Aka Ibrahim has dedicated his career to finding a way to restore mental capacity of patients suffering from severe head injuries, brain trauma, or the ravages of degenerative diseases by obtaining detailed scans of their brain before the trauma occurred. In early experiments, Dr. Ibrahim was able to repair some brain functionality, like motor functions, but any attempts to restore memories or personality were unsuccessful. While his breakthroughs in brain scans helped many patients regain some functionality, if a major mental loss occurred, it seemed that there was little chance of fully restoring the person until an event in 2932. It was that year, based on his reputation as a medical scan expert, that Dr. Aka Ibrahim was invited by the UAE government to study captured Van Duel biogenetic scanning technology. The recovered technology was more advanced than anything that humans had developed, and seemed to be even beyond much of what the Van Duel tech that they had previously studied. Dr. Ibrahim and his team were scarcely able to deconstruct the technology they found, or even fully understand how and why the Van Duel were using it. It wasn't until a covert naval operation in 2946 that new military intelligence allowed Dr. Ibrahim to unlock the full potential of the technology. The end result of years of research and the creation of advanced xenomorphic materials inspired by the captured Van Duel technology was the innovative Ibrahim sphere. It allows for complete biogenetic imprints made of a person. Far beyond just DNA and mental scans, the imprint captures a complete version of someone, including their memories and even their personality. The most surprising thing, however, is that the imprint does not remain static after it's made. While the process is still not fully understood, the information recorded on the sphere retains a connection to its source. If the source undergoes any major life experiences, such as traumatic injury or death, the imprint is permanently altered, known commonly as a traumatic response echo, or simply echo. Attempts at using imprints while the source is still alive have all resulted in failure. A leading hypothesis currently being studied is that the unique properties of the sphere may be creating a connection similar to quantum entanglement, linking the imprint to its source across what is known as interspace. Now, interspace is a complicated concept as it functions as a similar but smaller parallel dimension where points touch our material dimension. These points are known as jump points, where the application of gravity manipulating properties of quantanium is used to open a tunnel through interspace between various points in the galaxy. As such, there is no limit to the distance someone can be from the Ibrahim sphere to still be feeding data from themselves to the imprint. This is the foundation of modern regeneration technology as we know it today, and while we don't know for sure, precursory evidence has indicated that one of the top minds on Dr. Ibrahim's team might have been one Dr. Logan Jorrit. While we don't know a lot about Dr. Jorrit, we do know that he's worked with ASD as a project lead for many years, likely going back as far as the late 2940s. While we don't know directly, it's implied that Jorrit was part of the initial investigation of the captured Van Duel technologies that led to the creation of the Ibrahim sphere. If true, it would explain how Jorrit became obsessed over this technology, especially over how the Van Duel used this obscure scanning tech themselves. Remember that though the Ibrahim sphere is a huge part of the process of regeneration, it's only half of the solution. The other half is decidedly human in origin. Project Calliope, headed by Bioticorp's chief medical engineer Livia Haskell, is a full-body diagnostic and surgical system that has a variety of applications in reconstructive and cosmetic surgery. Inspired by her own personal trials after she was burned in a ship accident, Ms. Haskell and her team sought to improve the available physical alteration systems currently on the market. While people have been able to adjust their eye color or the shape of their nose relatively easily for years, Calliope allows people for the first time to safely and quickly undergo massive structural bone and tissue changes, that would have previously taken a team of surgeons multiple operations to perform. Part of this technology is likely the bedrock of what will become known as Bioticorp bioprinters. These devices can rapidly print any part of the human form using what is known as regen serum, which has become part of the traditional med gel loaded into autodocs all over the verse. This advanced progenitive distillate is used as a base material from which cells, tissues, and organs can be bioprinted for use in regeneration. So while the Vanduul had the tech to copy consciousness of a being, we found no evidence of a similar regen serum being made by them. This is where Jorrit filled in the gaps with his own theories on what the Vanduul have been using this tech for.
We are told that the Vanduul are our enemies. Why? Because they attack without mercy? I see no wrath in their attacks, just efficiency. They don't hate us, they just don't consider us equals. They are a species that lives for the future. Their regeneration system is designed to only propagate the genes of those who excel. They are perfectly adapted to their life in space. And what are we? Disgusting. The chaotic blend of impulses and imperfections. We can't even abandon our attachment to our dead home world. How can we compete with a species that's so perfect, balanced, evolved? By learning from them. Yes, we must adapt as they adapt. Use every regen as an opportunity to hew off our imperfections. I will remake us to what was intended. To truly take our place as an elevated species of the stars.
Now, I want to emphasize that while this is from in-game files, this is still coming from Jorrit, who is, let's say, not the most reliable of narrators. While it is just a supposition that he was part of the original research team, other evidence seems to point to Jorrit being one of the first scientists to truly begin to experiment with the technology. Either way, he's clearly obsessed with the Vanduul, believing they are evolutionarily ahead of humanity. Sometime in the late 2940s or early 2950s, as part of ASD's biomedical expansions, Jorrit was given a research lab, which has become known as Onyx Facility in the Stanton system. There, Jorrit experimented with the new Ibrahim Sphere technology, and this is where things get murky. It is clear that the purpose of Onyx was for Jorrit to not only try and figure out interesting uses and improvements to the Ibrahim Sphere, but to do so through use of Vanduul technology. We know for sure that this tech wasn't given to ASD through normal channels, however, with a secretive group known as the Shattered Blade, who operates out of Nyx, funneling just about anything they could get their hands on to the Onyx facility for Dr. Jorrit. This includes the central power core of Onyx, known as the Anomaly. While it's referred to as the Anomaly, Jorrit has given it the name GLX Power Core, clearly attempting to produce copies of the miniaturized design for a larger scale. Located in the engineering wing of the facility, this radioactive pulsing ball of energy seems to be contained using a device of strange origin. Given what we know about Dr. Jorrit's affinity for the Vanduul and his access to Vanduul tech, it isn't unthinkable that this device itself is Vanduul in origin, likely part of a smaller Vanduul ship power core. We know that they started with small experiments in the gravity lab portion of the research wing, where experiments were proving to be too deadly and dangerous to work effectively. During an argument with Jorrit, the head of this project secretly turned on his mobiGlass to record his objections to halting the project.
I believe what you meant to say is, thank you for this tremendous opportunity. Did you just press record on your mobiGlass? I just want it on record that I do not support nor condone the GRX power core being put into full production. We need to run more tests before we can. Your objections have been noted and overruled. I have reviewed the data, and the so-called fluctuations that have you so worried are just a symptom of scale. By increasing the size of the core, we will increase the throughput correcting the issue. The GRX will be going into full production as soon as possible. And I hereby tender my resignation. Accepted. Security, escort them out. It seems there are some that cannot even have greatness thrust upon them.
After this, Jorrit pushed ahead with scaling up these experiments to create the power core we can find at the center of the engineering wing. However, when they finished the project and turned it on, things went, well, bad.
It seems my team was correct. Pushing the experiment to a larger scale created unforeseen flaws. Though the destruction and injury to the team is regrettable, they should acknowledge the vast amount of information that we learned and were only able to learn by pushing the boundaries of our experiment. It seems I will have to give another speech about the power of sacrifice.
Despite this setback, the power core seems to keep the facility working, with Jorrit finding other uses for the core to further his future experiments. He went beyond just acquiring more Vanduul tech, and also began to gather Vanduul genetic material in order to test his belief in Vanduul superiority, and use that to improve regeneration. This leads us to what I believe is the main goal of Jorrit at Onyx, perfecting or possibly eliminating echoes. This was attempted through the addition of Vanduul DNA into subjects. Jorrit's first attempt was to utilize a captured Vanduul blade. It's known that a lot of Vanduul tech is actually partially biomechanical in origin, with even their ships being partially alive in a sense that they use a biological component to coat the interior walls of their ships. Jorrit hoped to harvest this material and use it in his experiments. The only issue was that the ship itself seemed to be too damaged to successfully harvest. This is where Jorrit came up with an unusual solution.
Say that again. I want it on the record.
The scans indicate that the biomass that's inside the Vanduul ship isn't dead, only dormant.
This organic matter, present throughout the hull of the ship, is theorized to provide atmosphere for the pilot. It can also act as a sealant from vacuum. Have you tried feeding it?
What?
Maybe it needs food.
Doctor, I am...
Find a way to compost organic matter and let's see if we can wake it up.
Yes, Doctor.
So by loading organic matter into a specialized device, they could feed the blade, so Jorrit could continue to gather the material for his experiments. Now, this is where things get murky once more. We don't know what he fed into the device, but knowing Vanduul harvest technology, most of the material that the Vanduul collect is a mixture of organic and inorganic parts, collected through massive harvesters that drop on worlds. These harvesters turn everything and anything in their path, including, and in some cases especially, humans. There are copion cages near the organic harvesting device, and it would be important to note that there are also a lot of bounty hunting style empty cryopods all over the facility. So it is likely that Jorrit and ASD were feeding the blade a mix of copion and human corpses. Speaking of copion, they seem to have been important to the work of Onyx, as there is an entirely dedicated facility in the research wing for animal research. We don't see Jorrit mention copion directly. We do know that he mentioned Valacar as possibly being important to his work.
The Valacar are a fascinating species. Their proliferation across known space is a testament to their incredible adaptability, nearly unheard of in an apex predator. They seem to completely adapt to their surroundings within just a few generations, and show a talent for survivability that we as humans should acknowledge, if not strive for. Further study is needed, as I believe there is much potential here.
This would come back to become extremely important in his later research. Lastly, utilizing this Vandal tech and material, Jorrit worked the kinks out of regeneration with one man, a volunteer named Sam, who would become his first major breakthrough.
Well, Sam, are you ready to make some history as the first person to have their consciousness transferred?
Yeah, I think so, Dr. Jorrit. But I did think of one more question.
Yes, Sam?
Well, I get that I'm going to be a new clone body. But what happens with the old me?
There will be no old you. This Vandal tech, while amazing, isn't able to make copies of humans just quite yet. When the scan completes, your current form will cease to function, and the imprint of your being will be transferred directly into the new body.
So, it's like I die?
The exact opposite. You will live forever.
Knowing what we know of regen technology, we know what Jorrit was saying is impossible. There is no way of circumventing the IVS. Eventually, everything will reach its maximum limit. I should rephrase that. It's not impossible, just impossible without major side effects. For you see, Sam has seemingly been able to achieve the impossible, but not without consequences. It seems that Jorrit has printed several copies of the body of Sam and placed them in special pods for safekeeping. Close inspection of Sam also reveals that his body seems to be, in part, Vandal. He then proceeded to experiment on Sam to see if he truly couldn't die. While it's unclear what specifically was done to Sam, it's pretty clear that he was subjected to harsh, inhumane treatment, being killed and brought back over and over again until his mind snapped. This is the start of a pattern which is very clear with Dr. Jorrit. He's rushed to begin in vivo testing, jumping as quickly as he could into live testing. It was sometime around the failure of his project with Sam that Jorrit started his final project, that of Project Hyperion. This required the expansion of the labs to a new facility, dubbed Site B. Now, Site B was apparently not known to ASD and was done entirely off the books, but it did require even further digging into the Earth, more than the workers had ever done before, and as a result, they came across an unknown creature. This creature is called the Urmandi, which calls the cavern under Site B home. We don't know if this creature is unique to Onyx. We do know that it lives in the cave system under Site B, and possibly can burrow through hard rock using its almost electric breath to burrow. It seems to prefer to live in water, though, as you mainly encounter it in the 3 pools in the cave by the entrance to Site B. While we know that Jorrit seemed to be intrigued by the Urmandi, we don't have any idea of what sort of testing was done by the Doctor for the creature. And whatever it was put aside when Jorrit got a hold of something incredibly valuable for his work: a corpse of a Vandal. This body was the key to his plans for Hyperion, which he laid out with a hypothesis for the project in his lab notes. Quote, "While humanity has embraced the technological marvel that is the ability to create imprints, they have missed the most important lesson from the Vandal that we've stolen it from: recombinant evolution. The Vandal freely combine imprints and genetic information from their best warriors to create their next generation of fighters. I propose that humans, with a few slight genetic adjustments, could likewise make an evolutionary leap forward through imprint modification. Think of it, with each imprint, we refine and evolve ourselves." Unquote. The experiment was all about utilizing the unique properties of Vandal biofluid and a modified human imprint through using a catalyst and a reagent. The goal was to create a human-Vandal hybrid. While this could have preceded Sam and thus led to his current status, it is unlikely, as we can gather data from Sam's experiment to use as part of the experiment that we can recreate in-game. Regardless of the outcome, ASD shut down the Onyx facility sometime around this experiment, suddenly recalling Jorrit and telling the staff to leave, not even giving them time to pack up.
ASD efforts would be put to better use elsewhere and will be shuttering Onyx facility. You should all feel proud of what you helped me accomplish here. Not as much as we could have with a bit more time, but still, an indelible mark on the field of science nonetheless. Please leave all notes, records, samples, and property where they are and head to the shuttle immediately. Don't worry, I've been told any personal effects will be forwarded as soon as they clear quarantine.
While it's not clear, there may have been some kind of containment breach which forced ASD's hand, considering the talk of personal effects passing quarantine. No matter what, the Onyx facility was entirely abandoned, left to rot for several years. At some point, there was an attempt to retrieve the data and clean the facility with contractors working with ASD.
All teams, you should have all the specs on the op, but we're going to get in, do what needs to be done, and get out. I want at least one, ideally two, shadowing the egghead at all times. Client said the place has been decommissioned for years, but that don't mean it's empty. So make sure you don't take any chances. Stay focused and check those corners.
But we know they were overwhelmed and killed in the process, perhaps by scavengers, or perhaps by something worse.
All teams, fall back to my position. We've encountered unexpected resistance and need to regroup. Make your way here and seal any doors behind you. We need to contain this situation before it gets completely out of hand.
In the meantime, a new issue began to rise. In March of 2955, a spaceship crash caught the attention of the media, as a surprising number of the victims failed to regen for an unknown reason. A few weeks later, an explosion in New Austin killed a staggering number of people who nearly all failed to regen. At this point, Bioticorp began to look into the failures and found a pattern of many failed regens going back quite a while. Thus, in April of 2955, the company announced that the majority of regens were now failing for an unknown reason. This sent a panic through the systems as people began to rush to hospitals and clinics where they berated the staff, many demanding their money back as the process of generating an imprint and the insurance required to be regened is astronomically expensive to the average person. This crisis caused Imperator Addiston to initiate the Second Life Initiative, which granted massive amounts of funding to companies who committed themselves to finding solutions to it. This attracted the attention of just about every company in the UEE, whether they actually had any serious medical research departments or not. ASD was no exception, and while they were primarily a weapons developer, they did have their own medical researcher on staff, one who just so happened to specialize in regen, Dr. Logan Jorrit. Jorrit was quickly brought into ASD's Second Life research, with facilities built in the Lawless Pyro system to circumvent UEE regulations. ASD built 2 facilities in the system. While we don't know which was built first, it was clear that ASD Lazarus was the main research site, while ASD Faro was the support site for Lazarus. While it's not exactly clear, it is likely that Jorrit was both the one to suggest the Pyro system and the construction of Lazarus, as it is located in a heavily irradiated part of Pyro 1. It's possible that this has something to do with his experimentations at Onyx, especially his experimentation with Copian, Valakar, and Vandal Tech, which all had something to do with the stability and success of his project with Sam. So, he continued his research using the irradiated versions of those creatures found on Pyro 1. The Valakar was particularly important as this invasive species, which is native to Lear 3, is known to produce valuable resources in the form of pearls. Jorrit believed that these pearls were the key to successfully stabilizing the Ibrahim sphere to solve the regen crisis. The issue was that pearls were only found on the Apex version of the Valakar, which were difficult to find. So the team began experimenting, eventually discovering that there was a way to summon an Apex Valakar, which has become irradiated through its time on Pyro 1. Valakar eggs seem to have a connection with the Apex variant, with the Apex Valakar acting paternal if not being the main producer of these eggs themselves. Gathering eggs from some unknown location, the team at Lazarus found that the death cry of the baby creatures inside the egg would attract the apex Valacar. While Jorrit was thrilled with this outcome, not every researcher was. One of Jorrit's team, a worker named Amanda Preston, expressed concern about the entire process.
Preliminary results look promising. Ibrahim spheres enhanced with irradiated pearl dust are showing better entanglement outcomes than what we're seeing with the normal ones. Dr. Jorrit's already given clinical the go-ahead to start in vivo testing, but I'm not confident we're at that stage yet. I want to replicate this a dozen or so times before we move on to development. We don't have enough data yet to say this is statistically significant. I wanted to get this on record, in case Dr. Jorrit keeps pressuring us to rush things. Still, I'm feeling hopeful. Maybe we can solve the regen crisis. Not bad for a weapons company.
She continued her work into trying to create an alternative to using the live irradiated larvae, and came up with a breakthrough, one that Jorrit didn't approve of.
Problem. Currently utilizing the death cries of Valacar larvae to summon and harvest irradiated apex. Obviously, there are moral issues with this approach. Hypothesis. By using some recordings I made, I believe we could synthesize the same sound without the need to cause unnecessary pain. I just finished some initial testing and was finding encouraging solutions.
Excuse me.
Dr. Jorrit. Hello.
Who are you?
Amanda Preston, sir.
What are you doing?
Oh, I was hoping to put together an official presentation, but I think I found a way for us to summon the apex Valacar more effectively.
We have a way.
Well, so we wouldn't have to destroy the eggs to do
They're
this.
worms.
But
They're worms. And you have real work to do.
yes, sir.
Thus, Lazarus continued its work, crushing larvae Valacar to summon apex variants, then killing and harvesting the apex to use their pearls to possibly solve the regen crisis. However, when Jorrit finally got to test the pearls in his experiments, he discovered something entirely different, beyond their use to stabilize the imprints.
Personal Journal, Entry 7. I managed to get a workable pearl into the machine and started running it through a spectrum of wave types. Mostly nothing, as expected. But something seems to be happening when agitating the photons of both the imprinted Ibrahim sphere and the extraction of the pearl. I'm not sure what it means, but the scans are triggering some anomalous energy signatures. What is this? Let me try running it against the sample I brought from the other lab. Oh, glorious! The reaction is stronger. My initial hypothesis that irradiated Valacar pearls could help stabilize the Ibrahim sphere connections seems to be correct. But I think its true value lies with my other work. I must get back to my real lab and see what this means.
This real lab is, of course, a reference to Onyx, specifically Site B. Taking his research, he fled Lazarus, leaving ASD to abandon the facility as a lab, though keeping the security team on staff to prevent those who might be curious enough to attempt to find out what horror the team was doing there. Shortly after he fled the facility, ASD was exposed for what it was doing at Lazarus.
This is James Harriman with another SSN Newsflash. Allegations have been raised against famed weapon manufacturer Associated Science and Development after evidence surfaced regarding a research facility that was experimenting on irradiated Valacar young under the direction of Dr. Logan Jorrit. Now, while not technically illegal due to the lab's location in Pyro, animal rights groups have lobbied for an investigation to be launched into ASD's research practices in all of their facilities to make sure they're operating within accepted parameters. A company representative claims that they will cooperate with any investigation, but stressed that Addison's Second Life initiative provides a very wide umbrella for current scientific endeavors, especially ones regarding the regen crisis. We're out of time. We'll see you on the next Newsflash.
The unethical way that the company went about their experiments caused an uproar in the UEE establishment, making it all the way to the Senate, where a heated debate on the Second Life funding was held. While I'm unsure if this played a part in the whole scandal, we do know through a message chain between Joy Ferguson, Chief Marketing Officer for ASD, and Zach Stanford, Vice President of Finance for ASD, that the government was just giving the stamp of approval for any project that even remotely claimed to solve the problem, even if it had almost nothing to do with regen. In this chain, Zach thanked Joy for their input, having managed to get Second Life funding for their new weapons program, an antimatter cannon deal with Hurston Dynamics. Joy went on to explain that the UEE was so panicked that they were approving anything ASD wanted. Side note here, but these two shamelessly flirted in this chain, and we even know that they had scheduled a very fancy date afterwards. So I guess blatant corruption is a massive turn-on for corporate types. Just a small FYI for those who are interested. With ASD in hot water, Jorrit fled back to the Onyx facility, where he would attempt to perfect his experiment, utilizing what he learned at Lazarus. While his status remains unknown, we can investigate the Onyx facilities ourselves and unearth the experiments that Jorrit participated in years before his work with the Lazarus site. For now, that is what we know about ASD and Dr. Logan Jorrit. Two birds of a feather, both pursuing the advancement of science through whatever means necessary, no matter how much collateral damage they might incur. It's important to remember that though ASD seems to be caught up in the crossfires of this event, they don't actually seem to be in legal trouble, and still are working with the UEE military. So, regardless of their actions, they seem to prove the old adage that in the end, all that matters is the results. I'd like to thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed the video, think about liking the video, subscribing for more content, and hitting the bell icon to be notified when these release. These take a long time to research and edit, so hitting that like button goes a long way to promoting it to other like-minded lovers of StarCitizen and lore in general. Now I gotta say, the ASD storyline from 2025 is the best storytelling the devs have done thus far. To be fair, it's like the second ever attempted storyline outside of their special events, but nevertheless, it's a really intriguing one. I'm not surprised that they're using it to connect to their main storyline for 2026. Also, Dr. Jorrit is such a fascinating mad scientist in that I can clearly see and understand what he is doing and why. I even understand that he does actually know what he's doing, but is just a bit too overconfident in his own beliefs. So I'm looking forward to his return in a future storyline, which probably will happen. I'd also like to thank those on screen now for supporting the channel financially. If you want to throw in a few credits, think about becoming a member on YouTube. And if you want a bit more for your contribution, join the Patreon. Patrons get early ad-free access to all videos, including exclusive early access to my long-running Complete History of StarCitizen lore series. Check those out now in the top right if you want to know what you're getting. Thanks again for watching, and remember, ex Historia ad Astra.